Hello, welcome to the Melanie Mesa podcast. This is she. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm very excited about our new setup. We're finally on video. For those of you that have listened to the episodes before, I wasn't on video, we weren't on video yet, and now we are. And you can find our videos in the meantime on Instagram at the Melanie Mesa podcast. So very excited for this new chapter and to get a little bit more personal with you guys. If you've listened to the other episodes, then you've heard how I've been focusing on mental management, on managing your mind. And while that is important, yes, it's very important to have your mind on track. And it's something that we should work on a daily basis and not just let it drive its own path. Every day I learn more and more that every move that we make, the reason we wake up in the morning, the reason we go to work, absolutely every drive, every passion, behind everything is an emotion, is how that thing, that action made someone feel. Everything is based on an emotion. And my inspiration for a podcast came from always wanting a safe space where I could talk about absolutely anything, because I can go from one extreme to another. I could go from not talking at all to talking your ear off. It's learning really when to stop talking. But I'm a good observer. And for the large majority of my life, I've been a great observer. And I observe people ever since I was little. I remember just being observant of my surroundings. And I would notice what people would say and the actions people would make. And over the years, since I have also such a good memory, for example, I caught on to patterns that people would for years have the same complaints or the same actions or the same thoughts. Over time, some people change, most people don't. Over time, I learned by observing, by the art of noticing, how truly emotional we are and how we can remain stuck in an emotion for a very long time if we don't catch on to the patterns and if we don't get fed up with ourselves to take action and change course. Emotions, I have had my own battle with emotions because I am stable and I have days where I'm not. I have days where I don't feel as confident or I don't feel as great. And it takes a little bit more of a push on that day. And on those days, I would beat myself up so much. So much. And nobody could have ever bullied me because there was no bigger bully than myself. So if I woke up with certain emotions for whatever reason, I wouldn't help myself. Because instead of talking myself out of those emotions, what would I do? I would just feed into them. So if I felt guilt or shame or fear, I would feed into them by bullying myself. Unconsciously, I would do this, but I'm pretty sure a large sum of us do this. where we're very judgmental of ourselves. Some of us are judgmental of others. The problem with this is that you you create a resistance to your nature. What is your nature? Our nature as um, human and spirit, our nature is actually not to remain in these low vibrational emotions. Our nature is to transform them. Our nature is to learn to identify these emotions, be aware of the mind's thought, and transform it and take control of the situation. The only thing you have control of in this world are your emotions and your mind. Most people, the reason why we want to control what's on the outside is because we can't control what is within. That is the truth. And the control freaks, they need the most help, the most love, the most compassion, because on the inside they feel extremely chaotic. I, on the other hand, or I, on one hand, have learned to embrace this chaos. It's not always chaotic. Sometimes I'm at my best. I have all this energy. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to take on the world. And there are other days where I don't. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like getting up. There's days where I'm like mellow, where I feel like doing everything, but at like slow speed, like chill vibe. And I had to come to terms with myself because I was like, Mel, you're doing the best you can. And I noticed a shift in myself. When I speak to myself with kindness, I instantly notice a shift within my emotional state. I guess this is where I'm headed. To pay attention to how you speak to yourself, but also take note of your emotions. I think emotional intelligence has to be one of the most important things we can learn in life. And thing is, once we learn and once we educate ourselves on the matter, we can actually be compassionate with other people. We can forgive other people. Because once you realize that you are not exempt from the emotions another person feels, you are not exempt from mistake, you are not exempt from a bad day, you are not exempt from error, from imperfection. You are not exempt from imperfection. And we learn this when we become more educated on how we work as human beings that are not just meat and bones, but we are energetic beings. We are energy in constant motion. Every emotion is valuable. And learning to honor every emotion that you have is essential for chemical balance altogether in the body. Your mind is extremely powerful. Extremely. I have had battles, and I'm not the only one that's been through this. Sometimes your heart is in one place, you're wanting to go in one direction. Sometimes your mind is in another, and then they just go at it. Like within you, you have that. That's like the inner battle. Happened to me a couple times. And I think I've finally got into a place where I've cracked a certain code. Like I've unlocked a new level. I've completely unlocked a new level, and this level has to do with When I'm feeling a low emotion, don't sit in it. Like, don't don't make yourself suffer. Ask yourself questions. Why do you feel this way? What could have triggered this emotion? What could be triggering this emotion? And then talk to yourself. Look in the mirror, talk to yourself with kindness, with love, with compassion. Talk to yourself as if you were a loved one, someone you really loved and cared for. We're so kind to speak to the people that we love. We're so quick to tell the people that we love that they are amazing. But it takes us a little longer, and some never do it, to look in the mirror and look at yourself in the eyes and tell yourself, you're doing amazing, you're doing great, you're doing the best that you can. I love you, I forgive you. All these things that we want to hear, but we're not capable of telling ourselves these things. Because it's not like, I guess maybe there's a taboo around it, like you're talking to yourself. You are the person you spend the most time with. Who else to know that well, to speak to with that depth than yourself? Who else? And you can become your biggest cheerleader. Once you become comfortable with that, you can become your biggest cheerleader, and you will feel the shift. Your words, your own words, have more power over you than anyone else's. Your own words. That is why, it's something I learned many moons ago. Some of us, some of us in the past, have entered into toxic relationships or continue to return to toxic relationships. And I learned at some point, I don't remember if it was a book, a podcast, a video, don't know, but I remember this little piece of advice or this little piece of knowledge that said, you only allow someone to mistreat you as much as you believe you deserve. I'm trying to put it in my own words because I don't exactly remember the order or how they said it, but it was that message where if you put up with someone mistreating you or disrespecting you or humiliating you or judging you or treating you poorly or talking to you poorly, you only put up with it because you, at some level in your subconscious mind, believe that you deserve that level of abuse. You will only put up with the same or less of the abuse that you already give yourself. Does that make sense? I think it was from a book. But that really that stuck with me, clearly. Because it's true. It is true. I've learned through practice and trying different things, trying something new. If you continue to do the same thing and you get the same result, but you want a different result, you can't keep doing the same thing. You need to do something different. If you want to feel differently, you have to do things differently. That's just the way it works. So as we're meant to, over time, as I continue to discover myself, I have discovered that the need to be vulnerable, it's actually a need. It's not optional. No. What is vulnerability? It is allowing yourself to communicate and honor every emotion. whether you consider that emotion to be shameful or not. It is honoring every stage. You're not always going to be at a peak. There are valleys, hills, and that's okay. That makes us human. It's the human design. As we challenge ourselves to try something new, like for example, me getting on this podcast to talk about emotions. Something I've been writing about for a long time, but I had never actually sat in front of a camera to record myself or get on a mic and record myself talking about my emotions. And there's a certain part of myself that feels relieved that I've gotten to this point where I can talk about moments where I have felt insecure, or my confidence is not the greatest, or I don't have the drive on that day. This is the space that I have created for myself. This is the space I've always wanted, dreamed of to have for that. For you, my audience, to also see this as a safe place to talk about those things that are just in your mind and you don't really talk to anybody about. This episode was actually inspired by a moment that I had. I don't have these moments often, but I do have them. And it was a moment where I felt like I was falling short. I was feeling a little bit insecure, a little bit of self-doubt, and I did exactly what I'm telling you to do. It worked for me. First, I was very confused as to why I was feeling this way because I saw no reason for it. But I backtracked and I did spend a little too much time scrolling. Yeah, also not something I do often, but on this day I did. And what happens when you spend a lot of time scrolling? What happens normally? You begin to compare. Some people just go on there just to compare, and some people, after a while, start to compare. And I realized that that was what triggered that. Let me let you in on a little secret that is not such a secret at all. Social media, let's talk about Instagram, the biggest one. It is what I would say in Spanish, una pantalla. It is a screen. I can show you only when I'm having a great, fantastic day. I can plan content to show you only the best, to show you how I romanticize my life, how my life is organized, but it's just one day. And I post this, and people post this, all this, everything's so organized, everything's so structured, so pretty and perfect, so aesthetic. And you begin to judge yourself because you're like, well, my life is not that aesthetic, it's not that organized, it's actually a little chaotic, it's actually a little messy sometimes. I have my moments where I'm organized, I have my moments where I'm a little bit chaotic. And it's, what did I do in that moment? I questioned myself. I came to this conclusion and I said, you know what, I'm going to shake this off. I got up and I started dancing. I started dancing. Dancing is a great therapy for me. And I think for a lot of people, especially dancers, of course. So I started dancing. And then after that, I started cooking. I just, I wanted to get out of this emotion. I've learned that there have been times I have to accept where I have held on to an emotion. Like I had said earlier, you wake up in a certain emotion and then your mind starts entertaining that same emotion. And instead of you snapping yourself out of it, you actually feed into it. Like, for example, you're sad and you listen to sad music. It's the same thing. You feed into the emotion. You identify with the emotion. And this is how we get lost. Because that's not our divine purpose. That is not our design. We're not meant to hold on to an emotion. We're meant to acknowledge it and alchemize it. Alchemize it, transform it. What did that emotion turn into where I was feeling insecure? I felt like I was falling short. I felt like I'm not where I'm supposed to be, though I've accomplished a whole lot with the resources that I've been given. I've done the most. I've done my best. And every now and then it's important to tell yourself, I'm doing my best. And my best is all I can really do. You could write that down and tell yourself that at any moment of the day, whenever. There's no right or wrong time. I am doing my best. When you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, it's usually when it works best. No pun intended. But out of that low vibe emotion that in the past I would have totally let it drown me, I got myself out of it and it transformed. And the way that it transformed, I got on my laptop and I started writing this episode. I started writing something else that I had learned about myself and about an emotion. Feelings of doubts, of insecurity, of falling short, of not having the timeline of your dreams. I learned to transform it. I learned to identify the trigger, what triggered it, and I got myself out of it, reminding myself of what I do have, of what I have accomplished. Sometimes you just need to stop, take a breath, and observe your surroundings and remind yourself. Either write it down or say it, remind yourself of how you once wished for what you have today. You once dreamed of many things that now are in your possession or now are yours to live, to experience. There are many reasons why we could experience low vibrations. I say low vibrations because we are all energetic beings and everything is energy, meaning everything has a vibration. And emotions have a vibration. There are low vibe emotions, there are high vibe emotions, and there's even mid. Emotions like envy, anger, shame, guilt, all are emotions. They're low vibe emotions. They're very heavy, very dense emotions. And like I said before, emotions, these bodies of ours, the design of our incredible bodies are made to transform these emotions. Imagine this body that is made of 4 elements, the elements of the earth, the same elements of the earth. It has the strength to contain light energy. I'll talk more about that on a different episode, but It's very exciting for me, as you can see, to talk about this. Emotions of self-doubt, shame, guilt, low vibrations are they're not um, strangers to anyone. We all at one point or another experience these emotions. And it doesn't mean that if you feel shame you are less than. No, not at all. It just means that it really doesn't mean anything. It means that you're human. It means that you're human if you feel shame. It means that you're human if you feel anger. It means that you're human if you feel anything. Absolutely anything at all. There's people that feel guilty about having things or about growing, and it just makes you human to feel an emotion, to feel good about yourself. It makes you human. The difference between people, between each and every one of us, is that our emotions are very unique to us based on past experiences, based on current events. They're unique to us, but emotions, nonetheless, are shared. There are some things that, oh, sorry. There are some things that trigger fear within me. There are some things that trigger fear within someone else. It does not mean that I am any less confident. It just means that, yes, there is something that can trigger that emotion within me. I'm not made out of steel. I am human. Same thing with shame, with guilt, anything that you can really think of. There's a long list of emotions. It's not just happy, mad, and sad. You could feel less than, you could feel embarrassed. You just have to find the right words to describe these emotions, right? In this era, in this day and age, there's a lot of comparing. That's another thing. Don't be ashamed to accept that you have had moments where you compare yourself and where you feel like, why can't I live that life? Or why can't it be me living that life? Better said. Why can't it be me living that life? And that, for example, is a feeling that comes from a feeling of lack. That thought comes from a feeling of lack. Every thought that your mind generates comes from an emotion. And so, also in reverse, every thought triggers an emotion. So it's like a constant circle. It's a constant romance what these two have. Emotion and thoughts, thoughts and emotion, thoughts, thoughts and emotions. They generate each other. In my moment of inspiration, after I had allowed this emotion to pass, I thought to myself, where could this emotion come from? We live in a great era, an era that I love. This technology era, this sharing everything era on videos, reels, TikTok. I love it. But like everything, it has its pros and cons. As I was talking before, the comparing. The generations now, doesn't matter what generation, compares itself to others. Not other generations, but other people. And that is an automatic, attack to the self. When you compare yourself to someone else, you automatically rob yourself of your own magic altogether. You're not meant to be like someone else. I have recently thought of a comparison. It's like an artist that creates art, masterpieces, and for these masterpieces to be alive, imagine that these masterpieces look at each other and judge each other and compare themselves to the rest of the art pieces that the artist created. Who is the artist in real life? The artist is the earth, God, the universe, whatever created us, however we began, right? We were created over time, and we're here looking next to us and thinking of a timeline and comparing and making ourselves feel less than masterpieces. That's not our nature. I don't believe that comparing ourselves, judging ourselves, making ourselves feel less than is our nature. I believe that goes completely against what we were created for. It kind of doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even help us. It makes us stagnant. But I guess maybe this is the part of being human. If there is light, there must be darkness. And these could be the deep depths of emotions. If there is uplifting, there is the taking down part. To get past an emotion, to not be completely swallowed by an emotion and drown in it, you have to first be able to identify it. Many of us are on autopilot because we are not taught to identify our emotions. That's emotional intelligence, and certain people, specific people, are the ones that are interested in that, to study that, to evolve that within themselves and others. Most people just, the emotion goes with the action, and it's like something that one cannot exist without the other. And since we are emotional beings, we identify with the emotions, and we believe that we don't have control over what we feel. Like, this is just how I feel, and this is just what it is. But there's a reason why you feel a certain way. For example, I acknowledged about myself that day that I had to accept, I reflected on myself and my actions, and I had to accept that I spent too much time scrolling. That day I spent way too much time scrolling, and I compared myself, and that's when I started feeling like I was falling short, like I hadn't done enough, like I have accomplished a lot but not enough. I'm still less than what I wish to be. And so also I kept digging even deeper. I'm like, but I've done a lot. And I'm like, since everything comes from your childhood or what you learned growing up, I started talking to myself and reflecting, and I'm like, man, there are various reasons why someone could feel less than, or incapable, or doubt themselves or feel insecure. One of them, already mentioned, is when you compare yourself. Kings and queens, we don't do that. We don't do that here. We don't compare ourselves. No. You are your own unique masterpiece. And that is the way it is meant to be. What fun would it be if we would all be the same? What fun would it be if we all lived the exact same life? Have the exact same drive, same passions? Nothing interesting to learn about anyone because everyone's just the same. That's boring. And we don't do that. Low vibrations, we want to let them pass. Another reason why you could feel these emotions of lack and all the emotions I named before is childhood trauma. Yeah, I said it. Dun dun dun. Childhood trauma. I have learned, it has come to my attention that there are people exist that believe that they don't have childhood traumas. And I love to be the one to break it to you. If this is you, we all have a trauma or two. Yeah, it's the truth. But I was shook. I was shocked completely when I learned that there are people that believe this. And it's okay. It does not make you less than. Remember, it does not make you less than to have childhood traumas. It gives you character. They're like scars. It builds character. Okay, since we're covering low vibe emotions, we're talking about feeling low self worth, which is a big thing, I believe. I believe self worth is one of the biggest ones. It comes from there. I feel like so many things grow, so many other emotions grow, like self doubt, like incapability, like feeling incapable of doing something, like you're falling short. It's all about self worth, about what you believe you are worth and what you believe, what value you believe you bring to the table. Childhood traumas are the root of how we feel about ourselves, of what we value, of how we show up in our everyday lives. And feelings of unworthiness, if you had, for example, a parent or both that were absent in one way or another, by that I mean, like, for example, maybe one of the parents was not there at all, or maybe they were both there, but they weren't emotionally available for you. Make sense? Or they weren't present for you. Like they were there physically, but not in the way that you needed emotionally. That is very common. Also common the my dad was never there. And in some cases, it's my mom was never there. So that right there is a childhood trauma. And that the absentee parent or absentee parents can generate and create in your subconscious mind the feeling of unworthiness, of feeling less than, of self doubt, of insecurity. Because you, in some way, you blame yourself for their actions. You say, why wasn't I enough for you to show up? See where I'm going with this? Or maybe they did show up, but the situation was complicated. Point is, you needed some emotional support as a child and you didn't get it. And now, as an adult, you carry around these emotions of inadequacy, unworthiness, or insecurities, and you don't know what to do with them. Or they drive you left and right. Childhood traumas are the root of everything. Also, abuse, of course, if you were abused, both verbally and physically, that can also trigger those emotions to be in your subconscious mind. Or maybe you saw a lot of abuse. That could also be a reason why you're holding on to that. Why am I going over this? Is because it's important for us to know where our emotions come from. It's important to understand where they come from. The more we understand each other, the more we can get to the bottom of things and unravel who we are, what we feel, and also clear out space, clear out energy, release energy. Once we identify the problem, we can solve it. But if you don't know the problem, or if not the problem, I don't want to say your childhood traumas are a problem, but if it's something that is keeping you from like going after your dreams or keeping you stagnant in a place of fear, then in my opinion, that's a problem. But let's say it's just something that needs a little tweaking. These are beliefs that you hold in your subconscious mind. They were emotions which became beliefs because they come from your childhood, that are not helping you grow in any way, shape, or form. So it's important to look within. Look within and remember, reflect. I know remembering is painful, but it's important to allow us to learn. The only way, many of us, I've noticed one of the brains, well, I've also learned and read, one of the brain's way of protecting us is by storing memories that cause our nervous system unease. That's the way the brain works. That's one of its superpowers. Events that caused us unease, especially when we were children or teenagers, many of them, the traumatic ones, many of them, it just stores them into like a dark room in your mind and body. And then you grow up and you're an adult, and little do you know that every action that you take, every move, until you become aware of yourself, comes from this dark room. The control panel is in the dark room. Yeah, I actually just thought of that. That's actually a really cool way of looking at it. Last but not least, on the topic of low vibe emotions, on the topic of feeling like you are not enough, which you are. I know this is the culture. I know this is the culture. We live in a culture that bases its value on what it does, on what it can produce in this physical 3D realm. I know it's the culture. But that is also not part of your design. As much as we try so hard to place tags on ourselves, we were never meant to value ourselves based on a number. And value has been a theme for me lately, and I might do another episode on just values. But this is another reason why I feel the world is a little bit upside down. Because instead of valuing ourselves on what emotions we generate within people, right? How we impact a room, how we impact someone else's energy, someone else's life. Instead of basing ourselves on that, we've been basing ourselves on our jobs, on our net worth, on our image. We base ourselves on tangible things, and that is why our worth is so tangible. And when you live from this place of valuing yourself on material things, you're in this constant flux and fear of um, of losing everything, your value in that everything, of not being important enough or not being important at all. I have actually had men introduce themselves to me, and before even telling me their name, telling me what they do for a living. And I found that to be so weird. Call me old fashioned, but before I get what you do for a living, I would like to know your name and maybe a little bit something a little bit more interesting about you and what you do on your free time. What are your passions? What lights you up? Kind of, I want to know everything else. And then at the end, I'll probably be like, oh, what do you do? But again, that is the culture. And it all stems from wanting to be part of the pack. Because since everyone's doing it, you feel like if you don't do it, you'll be left out. We are pack animals at the end of the day. Even us, the loners, we are pack animals. And our community and the world, the social media world, that is where we find the people that are like us. I wrote these notes. And did I use the notes? No. Why would I do that? But I do like something that I wrote here. Though we insist on placing tags on ourselves, like clothing, and putting ourselves on the imaginary racks of the social media platforms, that is not our purpose. Period. It's not our purpose. It's not our purpose to want to be like someone else, because we are masterpieces, each and every one of ourselves, just as we are. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can transform all these emotions that are keeping you stagnant. And it takes just one choice. It takes just 1 second for you to make the choice to say, I no longer want to feel like this. I want to move past this. I want to change. I want things around me to change. Therefore, what is within me needs to change. It is important that you remember that the only constant is change. And transformation is part of our divine purpose here. To transform into the best and greatest version of ourselves. I really hope you enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed the show. I hope you like the new setup. I'll have some more little things added soon. But I really enjoyed this episode, and let me know your thoughts. You can contact me on the Instagram account now. If you're watching this, then you're on my Instagram account. But you can contact me if you have any questions, any reflections. This is a safe space. That is the purpose of this podcast, is a safe space for myself and for all of you listening and watching. And I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for giving me the most valuable thing that you have, which is time, and listening, which is an incredibly valuable skill in life. So I hope to have you here for the next one, and I'm so excited. Bye.